The wolf, intrepid, familial, and long-haired. Space, purple, blue, and black. The human, intelligent, but of the same stuff about the wolf, long-haired. The space wolves embody the ferocious nature of the wolf in battle, and are probably the best space marines to spend time with. Greetings, chromatic warriors. Adepticon. I really got caught up in this one. I am a lover of snow, and the new Space Wolves line was previewed. And with that preview, GW sprinkled out some special bonus packs with the new unreleased Bloodclaw inside. I've painted many Space Wolves in the past. One time during an all-nighter before a tournament my brother was in, and then later in life for another friend who was about to play in a tournament. The cycle of the wolf is a cyclical thing. It's a wolf cycle. Anyways, it's been a long time since I've painted armies for food, and I forgot what a fun color palette the Space Wolves bring to the table. Spring is beginning, so I say goodbye to the winter with all of these frosty and cool tones. It just has me thinking in a different direction, which just goes to show that a different model can evoke a different paint job. And true to Viking form, I didn't use any black dye on this model. The decal on the shoulder is black, but Vikings didn't have that dye available to themselves. So I leaned more into the colder choices to create a more harmonious frozen setup, but let's have a look. To quickly set up my blood axe, I'll start with the airbrush. On nearly monochromatic models, this is a great way to start, and I'll be working from dark to light. So first, I base coated with Thunderstorm from the Warpaints range. You might as well spray the rocks too, just let them get all caught up in the mix. Lightening up my progression, I'll apply Iron Wolf next, and spraying in a top-down fashion, trying to get that natural overhead lighting. Remember to work in layers with the airbrush, just as you would with a normal brush. It applies a quick amount of paint, and laying down too much at once will make the paint drip. Apply thin sheets of a tint for a smooth outcome, and don't hold the brush too far away or your spray will speckle as it loses velocity. Just think about it. It's your thumb over a garden hose causing the spray, causing the force. So further away, there's less spray and force. So a certain distance you want to maintain with the airbrush. And for the final airbrush highlight, I'll use Wolf Gray. Apply it very sparingly. You don't want to erase the mid-tone, and that is a pitfall with the airbrush. It can be fun to just spray away, but don't overdo it. You will find you hold both fast results and fast mistakes in your hand. Move with perfect form. As the wolf. Alright, ground up inside to outside. We'll start with the icy base and wet blend from the Darkness, Gothic Blue, and Aegis Aqua. I want this to be frozen inside and out, and what a fun use of wet blending. Touches of Gothic Blue were scattered while the main actors were the Darkness and Aegis Aqua. On the flat area, I'll get to experiment with ice, but I'll save that for later. For now, a coat of Aegis Aqua will hold its place. With a satisfactory lumping complete, a violent dry brush of Frost Blue was applied. Adding a heavy frost-like layer across the rocks, I also used the wide brush to apply some reflected light upon the stone facings near the ice. This will be useful later. Now, to the Blood Axe himself. He needs a name. Every warrior has a title, and Toe Cutter was already taken. So how about Valbjorn? Carefully working from the hardest to reach areas out, I'll start by basing the piping with the Darkness. I could use a deep gray like Iron Hull, but as I paint and think, this colder color will fit my vision better. Staying cold, I highlight with Wolf Gray, but not the airbrush version. There's also a bottled version in the Fanatic range. Try and apply these in a tighter, reflective form. I want these to have a rubber appearance, so smaller highlights will emulate that dull reflection much better. And you, with your watchful eyes, may have noticed some other areas are also base-coated with the Darkness. For the weapon casings, I'll treat them the same. An edge highlight of Wolf Gray. The leathers will be abruptly highlighted with Sunburst Ochre. This will give the leather a more worn look and bring in a small touch of warmth to the scene. It won't be the only touch, but a gradual build of diluted spots followed by more targeted and sparing line work got the leathers going. Now as I'm working, I usually save the metallic paints if I'm using true metallics until later, so I'm targeting the tiny decorative teeth, and it's just too tight in there with all the casings, so I'll jump over to the metals. This gives me a chance to use one of the colored metallics from the army painter, Cobalt Metal. I love those colored metallics. I just don't have a lot of projects to be using them on until now. But for the brass touches as well, I picked out another metallic I haven't used yet, Evil Chrome. It too has a likable deadness that works on a frozen planet. Now onto the teeth. First of all, I'm just going to base coat them with flat Barren Dune. Then a blending of leather brown followed by the darkness to deepen. What a lovely bone tone. I'll call those good for now and move on, saving the final highlights on the small bits of gear for a later step. Okay, minor actions complete. It's time to get that juicy power armor going. I'll bring up the pauldrons with Fiendish Yellow first. It's going to take a few thin layers to bring this up without any unwanted chunkiness. Be patient. The undercoat is very dark, but when that yellow is brought to a healthy saturation, I'll wet blend in Sunburst Ochre to shade. I'll have to refine my wet blend with more diluted layers of Sunburst Ochre for that real cool smooth, maybe combining a little bit of the Fiendish Yellow. It all depends. If it's looking nice, then I'm all good. Then it'll be time for those defining red dags across the right shoulder. I'll use Dragon Red for this, highlighted with a slight amount of fiery Vermillion, making sure those highlights ascend towards the middle of the pad, leaving a shadow of Dragon Red below. And it's okay to use Fiendish Yellow to sharpen and sculpt these red lines. Loki knows I have. Decal applied. It's done. I didn't want to make a second micro tutorial on how to do decals because I have other little micro tutorials that I want to get to on this wolf. Check out Vincey V's tutorial. Next up, I'm going to clean up my work a bit on the blue armor. First, highlighting with wolf gray to get those smaller touches I couldn't achieve with the airbrush, and then higher with frost blue. Using the frost blue, I'll be pulling smaller specular highlights into place, keeping that golden angle in mind, and also trying to pinpoint some zenithal progressions. This will give me a nice semi-gloss look for that plasticine armor. I'll be using frost blue to highlight the yellow as well, bringing it back to the cold and adding a brighter color for a highlight. It's neat how that comes together, just shifting in value but adding a cold tone. Caps things off nicely. Now after all of that meticulous smoothing and perfection, it's time for some battle damage. I'll use the frayed brush for this, dabbing the darkness in place on the armor and Sunburst Ochre on the yellow plating. Following those chips, I want to underline the marks with a thin highlight. It's going to vary depending on how shaded that area is. Be sure to follow the values of the armor, shifting to wolf gray for some of the shaded areas, frost blue for the more highlighted areas. Is your own clothing heavily battle damaged? Do you want to paint over the hole so it looks like a new shirt? Check out the links below. There's instructions for painting shirts on Patreon, and there are shirts and cups for sale. Cups can cover shirt holes as well. This is something that I teach in my 5-point strategy to success. We'll talk about that later. Back to the Space Wolf. Now before I add my final highlights, I'd like to lay down some washes. I'll step away and take a little break while these do their thing. From the Speepaints range, I'll apply Tyrion Navy to all the metals, the undersuit, the base, the silvers. I think that was all of it. For the copper and brown areas, a coat of dark wood. Both of these are diluted to taste. Applying a straight speed paint is going to be too heavy. You can dilute them down an amount with water, but if you're going to go extra thin, use some of the speed paint medium. For this, I was being lazy. Half water, half speed paint. Just about. Now, with the washes dry, get out the frost blue for some final highlights on all the little bits. Sparingly highlighting the leathers, teeth, and all the tiny pieces of kit. Again, bringing it back to a cold tone. As long as every area gets cold at some point, I think I'll hit my mark on the atmosphere. To finish off the metals, the final highlight would be Mithril, and this is applied to any area that is either silver or reads as copper. I want everything to be brought up to a nice brightness for that shocking slice of metallic edge highlight. Now, back down to the base. I've been staring at it this whole time, thinking cold thoughts. I dry brush frost blue on the base again, concentrating on the upward facing areas, working some of the finer textures out that had the passive speed paint over them. Now, down on the ice, I started with a squared pattern and wet blended royal blue and Aegis Aqua together, maintaining linear streaks and working my way around. It's very interesting. I don't want to go too heavy, kind of working on larger pieces as I want this to appear to be more in the depths. This is a first layer. We're going for a kind of a false transparency. Now, dipping my brush tip into some frost blue and then laying that nearly on its side, I'm able to lay paint with a hard edge and a smooth edge from the belly absorbing on the other side. And this is feathering in a nutshell. This will produce a cracked ice look. I laid this in multiple overlapping passes until there appeared to be some depth, just working my way around. You want those gradual intersections, so wait for it to be dry, do another pass. Very fun. Then I came in with some white and focused on the intersections. Feel free to get a little sketchy here and drop a few chips. I feel like this could be made better, but I'm just kind of poking around the idea and seeing what I get. I can analyze how to improve this later, but there's a lot more traction in each of these steps. But anyways, feel free to get sketchy with it. Keep it light on this step. I think too much will break the illusion of tinkling ices. The Hormigaunt, quickly now. I want to get to the snow. But anyways, I used Gothic blue on the skin, leaving some of the darker area of whatever paint hit the gaunt to become shadow, the darkness and auger blue to color in the carapace, and then highlighting the skin with Warlock Magenta. Again, it was very fun to pull out all these purpley tones. I'm not usually a purple person, but I'm loving it. Finally, I added frost blue for some pinpoint highlights, once again securing everything in a frosty tone. Let it snow! Here we go. I'll be making snow from white flock and PVA glue with just a little dash of water to make it mix. You want this to be a thicker consistency so it holds some of its shape when it's dry. So apply it in a natural way, mounding on the tops of objects and hugging the crevices. You're doing great. And before I have more fun with the snow and the ice, I want to go in and touch up the Space Marine with final spots of white paint, mainly in tiny dots and slashes. I'll add to the finer details in general, saturating some highlights that were rushed. He's nearly complete, and there are times in the process when you should rebalance as it evolves. It is all about balance. I've painted this in a day. Did I mention that? I could not sleep. I thought I could put it down after the snow was dry. And then, or as the snow was drying, then the snow became dry and I'm still awake. I'll go back to the airbrush and load some Hydra Turquoise. Keeping it level with the ice, gently spray an accent along the snow and rocks near the ice. The lighter, the better. We want a hint of a tint. Beautiful. Lastly, I thought, some thick gloss varnish to put a shine on the ice and it'll be ready to skate. Oh boy. I'll lay down a few layers for a nice thick sheet. I should mention I'm using Mod Podge Dimensional Magic, a fine glossy paste. Now, as I'm working, sometimes you keep going. Maybe it's the pain that drives you or the light at the end of the tunnel, but whatever lies in the beyond, I didn't want to stop. I'm done, but then there's a new idea. So, alien blood. Using a length of clear acrylic rod, I melted and stretched it over an open flame. The strands were attached with more Mod Podge, and I mix a little bit of muddy mauve in with that Mod Podge. I can have fun here. The alien blood could be any color, and after I laid it down, just in my mind, I kept switching the colors into thinking what that little accent would do. I could make it join the warm tones, a little bit of orange. A lot of ideas. And I always appreciate the way that blood makes things active. Alright, so what a colorful joy to paint. This model gave me thoughts of the frozen battles the wolves are depicted in. It's such harsh chaos that they survive on Fenris and beyond, writing their sagas in the 41st millennium. For the wolf time, I'm eager to work on more space wolves. I really enjoy their active poses and wild decorations. They're much like Chaos Troops without all the Baroque trim. It's a little easier on the painter, right? So, yeah, what a joy to get something new and do this fresh color palette and just be inspired so deeply to make all the ice. I want to work on more space wolves. I was really feeling it on this one, so I hope you're having fun with your hobby too. Until we meet again, remain unchained.